I'm Joe Mohrfeld of Pine House Pizza and Brewing, and this is the Brewer to Brewer podcast from All About Beer. My guest today is Brendan McGivney of Odell Brewing Company, and he's here for a conversation that goes beyond the brew house and into topics that matter to brewing professionals and curious beer drinkers. First, please visit allaboutbeer.com and follow on social media at allaboutbeer and support journalism in the beer space. Check out patreon.com/allaboutbeer. We'll get into the conversation in just a moment, but first, this message.
First Tee is a proud sponsor of the Brewer to Brewer podcast. Some of the brightest brewers across the country have discovered the First Tee advantage. Hill Farmstead, Sweetwater Brewing Company, and Angry Chair are among the many who have used First Tee's unique and quality teas and botanicals to create top-rate beers. First Tee focuses on being direct, flexible, and fast. You can find out more about First Tee's collaboration with brewers and tea ingredients by visiting firstte.com/blog. That's firsdtea.com/blog.
All About Beer is back, and we're asking for your support to help provide the independent beer media this rich and colorful industry deserves. Visit our website, allaboutbeer.com, where we're frequently posting new content. And please consider throwing us a few bucks at patreon.com/allaboutbeer. We have low-cost memberships for individuals and small and large companies alike. Every dollar goes to help produce new articles and podcasts.
Looking for an easy hop sourcing experience? Yakima Valley Hops offers the finest quality hops from right here in our valley and premium growing regions around the world. Get the hops you need when you need them with ultra-fast shipping and awesome customer service. With a full line of liquid hop products and all your favorite varieties, no contracts are needed to brew with the best. Shop now at yakimavalleyhops.com. That's YAKIMA valleyhops.com.
Okay, let's get into it. A bit about my guest today. Brendan McGivney is the Chief Operating Officer and co-owner at Odell Brewing in beautiful Fort Collins, Colorado. He has been part of the Odell team since 1995, working alongside an amazing group of people focused on building community through beer at an award-winning independent craft brewery. He holds a number of degrees and awards, including a degree from the University of California, Davis, Intensive Brewing Science for Practical Brewing, and he is the 2020 recipient of the Russell Shearer Award for Innovation in Brewing. Brendan, welcome. Thanks for chatting with me today.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, so first off, there's a number of reasons why I selfishly wanted to chat with you today. I look forward to diving into them over the next hour. I think we got a lot of fun stuff we can talk about. But I did want to preface this conversation with the fact that you were the person that got me my start in this industry. And I can't thank you enough for giving me the opportunity to work with you at Odell and all the mentorship you've provided me over the years. It's always great to be able to reach out when I have a question or something going on with my business. So can't thank you enough. You're truly an innovator, both as a brewer and also as a leader. I think that's one of the things I definitely want to talk a little bit about, what you've done with Odell over the years and some of the unique structures that company is. And I think the only flaw that I know about you is that you're an Avalanche fan. We'll talk about.
that respect's mutual, Joe. It was awesome to get to work with you at Odell, but even more rewarding to see you take off and to be able to kind of talk shop with you along the way as you're innovating a lot and we're bouncing ideas around. I was just talking to John earlier about pH adjustment and, stuff that you and I just kind of talk about every time we get together. It's, we geek out, we talk hockey, dogs, whatever, and then get right into technical beer stuff. And it's always a blast and it's super rewarding to see you kicking ass the way you have.
Thanks, man. That means a lot. I appreciate that. It's been very fun. It's been starting to feel like a veteran in this industry. It felt like yesterday I just got into it and all of a sudden it's almost 15 years later. So it's crazy. But yeah, I guess that's a good segue. I thought it'd just be fun to give the listeners a little bit of background about your kind of career arc as not only a brewer, but the brewery co-owner and really a leader at Odell over this time.
Sure. Yeah. I started in, as you mentioned earlier, in 95. And at the time, my wife and I just graduated from CSU, Colorado State University. And we were ready. We had a business plan. We had property. We had financing. We were ready to open our own brewery, actually back in New York, where I grew up. And, we figured we better learn some of the ins and outs of actually working at a brewery beyond just making really tasty home brews. So she got a job at New Belgium back then, and I started at Odell 2 weeks later. So we each had incredible opportunities within these fast growing companies. Katie worked at New Belgium for 15 years, and I've been at Odell a long time now. But along the way, we realized there is a lot more to it than just making tasty beer. And you mentioned the leadership aspects of it, and that's actually, for me, the most rewarding part of my work right now is being able to work with teams and watching people develop and watching folks thrive. I mean, like you, again, we spent 4 or 5 years together, and you spent the last decade thriving and leading another. You're taking, the stuff we did together and applying it with your own twist on it, and you've built a super strong team, and there's nothing more rewarding than that. It's that's what it's all about for me. And where it started as just beer, it's much more about leading people and creating super cool work environments that are unique in today's world. If you work at most any other industry, you don't get to do these kind of things. So I'm very thankful to have this opportunity, and it didn't go exactly as planned, because the plan was to be at Odell for 2 years. But it's been really an amazing ride. And it started with the Odells actually granting myself and Eric Smith, who's our CEO now, a small piece of ownership many years ago. And then that just kind of grew, and we had stock appreciation right. And then when the Odells were deciding to transition out, we had an opportunity to buy in, and we took advantage of that, exactly the peak of the market. So it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get into some. I want to talk about the ESOP and some of that a little bit later. So I'm glad you kind of brought that up. But yeah, you talk about the leadership. It's something that I feel the exact same way. I mean, I think the most rewarding thing now is really providing people with opportunities. And I'm always very proud, like, when one of my brewers, buys a home or gets to do something, to move their life into that next step. It's something that you really instilled in me. And I remember having a conversation with you, when I was in my 20s, and I thought I just wanted to wear my brewing boots and mash in every day. That's what I thought brewing was. And I think you were the first one to really, say, like, being a brewer is so much more. And it's, I always see that with you, not only from some of the relationships you build on, like, the raw material side or your suppliers, but what you do for leading the team and stuff. So yeah, it's really cool. I think you have a unique vision for all of that. So it's fun. And with that, talking about some of the innovation, Odell is definitely, in my mind, one of the most innovative breweries. You guys are always an inspiration, I think, to many of us in the brewing world. I mean, I don't think there's a brewery you talk to that doesn't hold you guys in one of the highest regards for quality and innovation. And especially at your size, I know it gets a little more challenging, I think, moving the ship as it gets bigger sometimes. But one of the things that I think you do so well is in the raw material realm, specifically with hops. I know you were one of the founding members of the Hop Quality Group, along some other iconic brewing individuals. But I guess what's little history, what got you so motivated on the hop side, and then what continues to excite you about them? And I think we're going to spend a fair bit of time here, so we can kind of spitball as we go.
Yeah.
But you're the one that instilled this love of hops. When I started Odell, I just wanted to make barrel aged beers and sour beers, and you took me to a hop field, and I just wanted to make IPA. So that's all I make.
You're really good at those sour barrel aged beers, man. You had some beauties. Deconstruction, that was a nice one. Yeah. It started early on, where you realize that I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to beer, and it's torturous at times, but it was one of those things early on. It's like, to make the best beer we possibly can, we really need to understand our raw materials to the most basic level, which is what initially took me out to the hop fields before, it was before anybody was really, not a lot of people were going out for selection, right? You'd see the Grossman family out there, for example, but you didn't see a whole lot of other people out and about, other than the big brewers at the time. And just getting a chance, and all these people now, Joe, I see the relationships you've built with them and your friends, and just getting a chance to meet with the hop farmers was so eye-opening, and the alignment was so strong, right? We're all trying to do the same thing. They're trying to make a great living within this industry and provide the best raw materials for us to create the best beer and have strong relationships so we have a sustainable business together. And none of that has changed. Like, the market's gone up and down 10 times since then, but none of that's changed. You have a conversation with any of these guys in the industry, and we still share the same goals. We want it to be healthy. We want it to be sustainable for everybody in the loop. And getting into the fields, you really start to take that quality to a different level and realize that every little thing matters. And the more you can influence the quality of your raw material, the better off your beer is going to be in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it definitely shows in all of your beers. Obviously, that dedication to that and spending the time out working with the farms. I remember one of the trips with you out there walking into Jason Peralt's office, which was like a little trailer parked on the property back when we went there, and him just handing us some Mosaic. Well, before it was called Mosaic, I think it got named the following year, maybe 2 years later. I forget exactly. But yeah, handing them to us and just, watching us rub them and seeing the excitement on our face. And, that was cool. And I know you had been smelling that in the fields for years prior. So it's gotta be fun, watching all these hops come up. I think you guys are the first brewery to have your own pellet mill. Is that probably true?
I don't know. I don't know what everyone else is doing, honestly. Doesn't Zach have one?
Zach had one, but I think you had one first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, like, I know you had the rupture process. You did that beer rupture, which I thought was really cool. But kind of going into that innovation, some of the stuff that you guys have done with hops, and just, I guess, not only that, but then, like, what, you've always been a big proponent of whole leaf, in some of your, in your hoppy beers in some aspects. So yeah, just kind of the evolution of what you've done in your hop profiles, and then some of those processes that have developed over the years.
Yeah, let me just I'll get to that, but I don't want to lose the thought real quick. When you mentioned Jason Peralt, just had a conversation with him a couple weeks ago about and how exciting it was, Mosaic. We were stupid enough to actually use it in a barrel-aged woodcut beer, I think, before it had a name. Not in a hazy IPA, right?
Yeah, I remember that beer.
Woodcut beer. But no, talking to Jason a couple weeks ago about an experimental variety we've been using for, it's got to be 7 years now, called HBC 638. And I think we're the only ones who really connected with it. It's not one of those like, maybe 586 is going to get some wings, or one of these other brands, other varieties rather, is going to, connect a little bit stronger on the IPA front. But we were talking about HBC 638 as a potential, like, all around hop. Could it be used the way we use Centennial and the way we use Cascade, and something that is stronger for the farmer and for the brewer, right? It yields better, it's harvested late, it's disease resistant. Like, there's so many positive qualities agronomically, and then it's just so pleasant in the brew house, right? It's not a unicorn, it's not a rock star hop, but it plays so well with everything we've done with it that it may just have a space as a different type of hop, as more of that utility hop, really versatile hop. So just having a conversation with Jason, who's just such a knowledgeable guy, you know him, he's like one of the smartest guys I've ever met. Having a conversation with him about what this hop could do and what it could be and what he sees in it, and talking about value proposition throughout the supply chain. It's like, man, that kind of stuff's really exciting. And that's beyond just what smells amazing and what's the next Citra, the next Mosaic. It's like, no, what's good for the industry? What could work for all of us? Let's work together to figure this stuff out. those are the kind of conversations and relationships and industry leadership that just I get geeked about, man. That's what keeps my bucket full after all these years.
Yeah, that's cool to hear. It's I know, yeah, you guys have been pretty hot on that 638. I think you've sent me some to play around with a couple times. But it was, it reminds me too of a conversation I had with Jason this past harvest. We talked a lot about obviously the pressures of climate change, water scarcity. We start looking at these hops that, we're putting in pounds and pounds per barrel into some of these beers. And I think we need to always remember that we need to be good stewards to the environment too. And not just be wasteful with these and understand, if a hop is yielding 6 or so bales per acre, is that really the right hop to be using? I actually was talking when Matt Cole interviewed me last on this past podcast. We talked a lot about this, and it's something that's gotten me really interested. I feel like I spent half of harvest talking with farmers about this aspect versus what's the new exciting aroma. Everything was really talking about bales per acre, inputs, disease resistance. So yeah, it's cool that, you guys are promoting a hop that is going to do that and, might solve some issues for these farmers. It's going to put less diesel to grow it, less, carbon footprint and a huge impact. So that's cool.
We need some new lager hops too, or just some general bittering hops. It's not we went so far down the IPA path of the next big sexy hop that I think that maybe some of the rest of the needs were overlooked a little bit, whereas it used to be completely the other way, right? Everything was about the 2020 hop, right? Let's get 20 bales and 20 alpha and make extract out of everything, and then it was like boom, let's find the next Citra Mosaic. But
yeah,
we do need to find some efficient hops for the growers and for the industry, the whole brewing industry, not just a subset of craft.
For sure. I think that's a good point. It's interesting. I actually haven't talked to you about this much, but I don't know how much you're using of the Southern hemispheres. We've always used a fair bit of Galaxy, and we've gotten into the New Zealand hops more, especially as that market's become a lot more transparent. It's actually really cool to see what's happened down there.
Yeah, it is.
And I love seeing like the farm reports, because they essentially have the terroir of the soil when you select a hop, which is really cool. Way more like almost wine focused. But then you talk to them and you got like a Riwaka, which is yielding, 2 bales per acre, equivalent in their, metric tons. And it's like, yeah, we might not be getting back to that 20 bales, but we need more than 2.
You need more than 2.
Yeah. That's a tough one. It's a tough pill to swallow, and then I look at it as, then we're shipping that across the world, and I don't know, it gets to be sometimes a little challenging to justify that. But are you guys still pretty involved in the Colorado hop or like the hop scene? I know that was kind of how I got my start in the hop yards with you and myself and Chad Jacobson, Zach Turner, and taking trips out to visit some interesting, some characters of the hop brewing community at the time.
Yep. I think it's probably just about the same as the last time you saw it. There hasn't been much growth. We'll play around here and there, but it's really not a legitimate industry like it is in maybe some other parts of the country. It sounds like Michigan's doing pretty well. But I'd say Colorado is still kind of a step behind, not in terms of quality. Obviously, look at the Cascade Cup.
Yeah, that was exciting for Billy Goat. Yeah.
Very, very cool. But yeah, just the infrastructure is not quite there. And the risk is significant in Colorado with hailstorms we get and just the weather patterns. It's not quite as, not that anything's predictable, but not quite as predictable as maybe some other areas. So we just play around, but we're not in deep by any means.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It really hasn't developed. You were there when we were really trying. We were really investing quite a bit of time and energy and money into trying to help get folks off the ground and get the equipment. But it's like a brewery, man. You know this, Joe. It's so capital intensive to have a professional hop yard with a really good picker and, or, you know, a really good kiln and a way to bale your hops and at least get them in a bale, right? I mean, for us to brew, we have the hop back, like you mentioned, we're a fan of whole leaf hops, and we still are. We use quite a bit of raw hop in our hop back process for IPAs. But that's not, it's kind of hard to get a, you know, apple bag full of loose hops and, you know, kind of wet hop style with any kind of volume. So we do it for our pilot brews in Denver, those 10-barrel systems.
Cool. Yeah, it's I remember going out there and we would basically be loading up like burlap sacks and throwing them in the back of a van and, you know, trying to race back to the front range to use them. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. You know, anybody who's been out to Yakima in the last decade has seen the infrastructure they've put in. And I mean, that was always the issue with Colorado, right? If you're growing a couple acres, how do you justify putting in hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of, you know, capital intensive equipment that, in all honesty, you run for 30 days or less? You know, that's a very hard thing to justify. So
I know there were a couple of, at least one, you know, Yakima brewer or hop grower back in the day that was looking at the Western Slope as maybe plugging in a business unit, but that didn't pencil out. There was just too much risk, and the costs weren't in alignment to make that kind of move. So it's unfortunate. I wish we had a thriving hop industry in our backyard, but we just have to go a little bit further west. Yeah,
that makes sense. Well, I'm glad it's at least, you know, it's cool to see Billy go. I met those folks a couple of years ago. They were down in Austin. So that was pretty fun. And actually, what maybe tell people about the Cascade Cup, since you are one of the founding members of the Hop Quality Group, and like what that means for the growers when they win.
Yeah, it's a big deal, right? I mean, it's like you mentioned, the best of the best in the industry, judging Cascade cuts of Cascade hops that are presented anonymously, like they are at a GABF or World Beer Cup for beer. And the idea was to have a cup kind of, you know, somewhere in line with the Stanley Cup, something big and substantial that someone would hold for a year and say they had the best Cascades in the world or the country. Or so that it's super exciting. I haven't judged it. Did you judge this year?
Yeah, I judged it this year, and I think it was 2020 or 20. Yeah, it's 2020 in Portland. I was out there for that HGA.
How many? How many cuts did we have?
It was a lot this year. I think we had 4 or 5 tables set up with 8 cuts. I think we had close to 50 cores.
That's great.
We did have a few farmers kind of pulled like what some brewers do to GABF, and you know, we're stuffing the ballot box a little bit. They sent in a few samples. You know, I think they're only supposed to send in the one, but it was good. It was, and I think I picked theirs as my number one. So nice. It was very good. And that's the first time I think it's left the Pac Northwest. And yeah, and to speak to that trophy, it is big. Yeah, and it's pretty obnoxious to ship.
Yes,
that seems to be the thing every year, is how to get it to the farmers. So
it's interesting to see the other, you know, obviously most of the hops are grown in Yakima, right? But it's interesting to see that Oregon's taking it pretty often. Colorado's picked one up now. It's kind of it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah, the old guard is it was an interesting when they announced Billy Goat at the HGA this year. I think there was a lot of the collective so yeah, it was fun. Yeah, so you know, we know you use a lot of whole leaf, obviously a lot of pellets. You guys have your own little pellet mill that you'll do some pelletizing with, which is, I think, super cool. I think last time I was there, Scott was showing me how it's all set up in the little coolers to keep everything colder and whatnot, which is pretty rad.
That thing's great with the experimentals, you know, when we're just getting going with an experimental and we're just talking a little bit in a handful of bales. That thing's great for that because it's small scale and we can rip some pellets and really try some things out. Because it's hard, you know, obviously the farms set up in the Pac Northwest are set up for large batches. So when you only get a handful of bales out of elite line, it's kind of nice to be able to run some bales just through a pellet mill at home and try those pellets out, because those systems really aren't designed for it. I know more and more folks are putting in smaller kilns and kind of R&D type systems out there, but it's been really nice to have this added flexibility of having our own pellet mill and hammer mill.
Yeah, it's cool. It's been fun, like seeing some of your projects when I'm around visiting. It's a good time. Are you guys doing anything with some of the newer hop products that's like the flowables or anything like that? Or are you guys sticking pretty traditional?
Yeah, I mean, we've been pretty stubborn, and by it's my fault up to this point, but just now we are. Again, when you talk about sustainability of the market and shipping large bales, and I don't know, we have to really start looking at these advanced hop products so we at least understand what they do. So we're just really we're late to the game, admittedly, but we're just starting to look at a methodical way to examine them kind of at our pilot level, not on the big system, but at least to understand how these things are going. So I'm all ears, man. If you got some experience there in a product you really like, let me know. We'll start there.
For sure, I'll keep you posted. We're kind of in the same boat. I think probably because of your mentoring of me, I've been a little slower to jump over.
Well, those products have come a long way in a short period of time too.
They have. We're starting to play with them more. We're just up against some of it is just seeing if we can, again, just be a little more efficient, reduce some of our waste. We don't have a centrifuge or any way to separate. So we're doing everything we can just to try to be more efficient. Sorry, the dogs they're fired up. Zats and Perla are fired up today. They know you're on the call.
Nice.
Yeah, I guess, I think just to kind of wrap up some of the hop stuff, and then I definitely want to talk about the pilot brew houses after this, but to wrap up some of the hop stuff, I know we talked some of this, the challenges that we're facing, but what, like right now there's obviously acres being pulled out. Farmers are, maybe a little worried about what's going on. I think you made a good point about developing hops, not just for a certain niche of craft. But what are the challenges that you really see across the raw materials, and how us brewers, how can we help support across all sizes?
Yeah, I think the number one thing, and it's been this way the whole time I've been here, is communication. We really finally, part of the hop quality group really was stepping in and being that liaison that, when InBev took over, Anheuser-Busch, they lost their quality program that, Scott was a part of, right? Where he was out there advocating for the quality of the raw materials. And it was just kind of abandoned and no one was there. And the dealer network in hops didn't really connect the grower necessarily to the brewer. So we kind of broke down some of those barriers back then. And now we have direct conversations with the hop farmers. And that's the biggest thing we can do at every size, is really just to communicate what's going on. It doesn't feel good for me to call and say, listen, I went a little long. I'm long. I'm not going to need this and that from 23, but I need it in 24 or 20, it doesn't feel great to be, budgeting to be slightly down. But at the same time, I need to let our hop growers know as soon as I know, so they can make the proper adjustments on their end. And then for me personally, it's important to also communicate my commitment to staying in a partnership with the people that we are partners with, that have been valuable to us over the years. So communication is it. That's number one, just being really honest as soon as you understand your needs, because again, as you know, Joe, it takes a while to make these adjustments. When you're ripping hops out of the ground or you're planting new varieties, when all of a sudden we all ask for Citra at the same time, that was hard to react to. And they did react. Everyone put them in the ground. And then, 3 years later, they're mature plants and there's more Citra than you need. So now they got to rip them out. So really, being forward thinking, it's never been more difficult to predict what's going to happen. But as soon as we have an idea of what's going on, we need to let our suppliers know.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice. I feel like I get this question from more brewers than I ever have. Just, how can we, help our suppliers? Because we are in this together, and and no matter what the brewery size, we all started at zero, right?
Yep.
And everybody's a different inflection points in their brewery, and yeah, we need to not just be supportive when they're doing everything for us. We need to help them, to get through these times too. So it's a great advice.
Well, and I think you mentioning the size, it matters no matter what size you are, right? There's 10,000 breweries or whatever. That long tail is what adds up and creates quite a bit of volume. So by having these conversations, they can aggregate that information at the grower level, at the dealer level, and make wise decisions for the next couple of years, because everything's changed so quickly, so dramatically, after the COVID incident. The fallout is just like, I don't think anyone could say with certainty what's going to happen in 2 years from now, right? Everything was flipped upside down. We were, you're all draft, and then all of a sudden there is no draft, right? Now you go, okay, cool, we'll package real quick, and then no, wait, draft is coming back, sort of. We're not sure. Like, the consumer wants this. You're like, wow, it's never been more difficult to predict. So we just need to keep communicating.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I definitely want to talk about some of that stuff coming out of COVID, and I know you guys have obviously you've seen your business go in multi directions after. But first, we're going to take a short break for this message, and then come right back for more of this conversation with Brendan McGivney of Odell Brewing.
First Tee is a proud sponsor of the Brewer to Brewer podcast. Some of the brightest brewers across the country have discovered the First Tee advantage. Hill Farmstead, Sweetwater Brewing Company, and Angry Chair are among the many who have used First Tea's unique and quality teas and botanicals to create top-rate beers. First Tee focuses on being direct, flexible, and fast. You can find out more about First Tea's collaboration with brewers and tea ingredients by visiting firsttee.com/blog. That's FIRSDTEA.com/blog.
All About Beer is back, and we're asking for your support to help provide the independent beer media this rich and colorful industry deserves. Visit our website, allaboutbeer.com, where we're frequently posting new content. And please consider throwing us a few bucks at patreon.com/allaboutbeer. We have low-cost memberships for individuals and small and large companies alike. Every dollar goes to help produce new articles and podcasts.
Looking for an easy hop sourcing experience? Yakima Valley Hops offers the finest quality hops from right here in our valley and premium growing regions around the world. Get the hops you need when you need them, with ultra-fast shipping and awesome customer service. With a full line of liquid hop products and all your favorite varieties, no contracts are needed to brew with the best. Shop now at yakimavalleyhops.com. That's YAKIMA valleyhops.com.
Cool.
Well, welcome back. We got Brendan McGivney here. Just talking about coming out of the last 2.5, 3 years, how crazy it was. You mentioned going draft to package. We were basically 100% draft distribution in Austin here, and overnight we lost all 400 points of distribution, which was which was crazy. So we flexed into package. We've been pretty fortunate. We had draft come back a little bit faster than I think some markets did, and came back really strong for us. But you guys being regional, obviously there's some other challenges. And I guess with that, when I was there, obviously we had a true flagship. I'm actually wearing the 90 shilling shirt today in honor of the conversation. But you guys have ventured out into wine. You now have a brew pub in Denver. You got your other brewery in Denver, but it's not a restaurant, but you do actually operate a full pizza place brew pub now. How are you seeing this coming out of COVID to just try to be as in control of your growth and make sure you're looking long term, and being smart about it?
Yeah, so a lot of the things that we've done over the last few years, we actually started planning, about 5 or 6 years ago, where our strategic plan involved diversifying our business. We could kind of see what was happening with beer. The hyper growth times were kind of coming to an end. We saw what was going on there. We understood that local is the future and that we are Colorado's top independent craft brewery, and that we really need to lean into that and focus on Colorado and build out more smaller communities within our home state. So that's where, we've had that pilot system in Fort Collins for so long that generates a lot of interest and keeps the innovation going. So to add 2 more spots in Denver that are standalone 10-barrel brew houses, start to finish, where everything's only served over the bar, helps to generate more innovation, more creativity, and then builds 2 more unique communities within our overall Colorado community. So that was the intent there, to diversify, focus on Colorado, and continue to innovate. So it was just kind of, again, this was before COVID. So that stuff has helped us. As you said, draft comes back really quick in your own premise. That hasn't been a problem. The Sloan's Lake and 5 Point spots are doing great. It's been a pleasure to mess around. I mean, Sipping Pretty, Brent did that at 5 Points. He was just goofing around, made a guava goza, and people went nuts over it. We're like, maybe we should take this to the big system. Now Sipping Pretty, Sipping Brand Family, 90 Shilling IPA, they're still, 90 and IPA are still 1 and 2, like they've been since you were there. But Sipping Pretty's right there with them. So that's been exciting. And now we got Lauderdale kind of running up and trying to join that group as well. So that stuff's all come out of those innovation centers of the 10-barrel brew houses. And then Denver's, very different than Fort Collins. So it's been fun to reach the Denver community with those brew houses. And we realized after 5 Points that, folks could probably use some food with their pizza. That's kind of what led to Sloan's Lake. And then you guys were amazing, you and your team. You remember before we started Sloan's Lake, we came down and paid you a visit, and you guys were so generous sharing information. And, Vinny and Natalie shared a lot of information with us. And that's just one of those things that's special about our industry, right? Is how often we do talk to each other, help each other out, share information to help make better decisions for all of us. So I don't know, those have been really fun projects. Not that they're not challenging. Yeah. Again, COVID, and all of a sudden you have a restaurant. That's
and a restaurant's a totally different animal, especially coming out of COVID. I mean, obviously staffing is harder, and just making sure we obviously want to treat our employees well and pay them, and so navigating all of that and still understanding all the pricing sensitivities and input pressures and stuff.
Apparently there's more turnover in a kitchen than there is in a brew house.
I feel like I was like one of the first people to ever leave Odell on the production side. It felt like, so it's you guys are amazing with retention, and something that we constantly aspire to. It's cool, talking about the different facilities. You basically have like three little pilot systems that you get to kind of be I suppose the puppet master to some extent, and get to play around on, which has got to be really fun. Especially you still get to play on the one at in Fort Collins a little bit.
Eli's been leaning in a little bit there, so I gotta wait for my turn now. Eli Culloden, he's our technical director, and he jumps in there quite a bit. We've really spread that one out. We got all the brewers are in it, the cellar team, the packaging crew. I mean, everybody's brewing on that. It's kind of like the old days. It's a lot of fun.
That's cool.
We did go through a time period where we had one person responsible for the program, and now we've spread it back out again, and it's invigorating for the whole team.
That's cool. It was always such a treat when we got to brew on the pilot system, and sometimes you get bounced by Doug because he would have wild hair that morning and decide he wanted to brew instead of you, but that probably doesn't happen.
Sometimes you could finish his brew for him.
That happened more times than not. Yeah. Yep.
Right about grain out time.
Yep, right about. Yeah, he always had to fly out around noon. It seemed like right about grain out time. Um, yeah, that's cool. And then I was just thinking, because I've been seeing on the social medias, thinking of all that small batch innovation. But you guys just had your small batch fest, which is cool that you brought that back. I know it was kind of dormant for a few years, but it sounds like that party's back and is going really well. That's cool.
Yeah, it sounded like it was really well received this year. It was a little bit smaller, but we changed the format so you didn't have to wait in long lines. You pay a little bit more for a ticket and kind of leisurely try anything you wanted. And everyone's not running to the one brand and creating chaos. They were just able to kind of relax and have a good day with a few bands and some food. So yeah, I think it was one of the most successful ones, honestly.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's fun. I loved those when I was living back there. They were a good time to make it up for one of them sometime soon. Kind of bummed we normally up there in the summer for the Weldworks Festival, but they took a year off, so I won't be making my pilgrimage up to the Front Range in a couple weeks like I normally would. So I'll have to figure out another time to get up there.
Absolutely.
So yeah, talking about how good you guys are at retention. I think you guys do an amazing job fostering an inclusive employee culture. And then one of the things that you guys did a number of years back was going to the ESOP, and I kind of talked about it earlier. I think I'm really curious. I forget what year that officially happened, but I know not everything can probably be perfect with it, but what are some of the challenges that you face, and what are some of the successes for it? And what have you learned over those years that you provide as like guidance for places looking to do that, or just some takeaways from it? I think it's such a cool sounding program, and obviously a few breweries have gone through it, but yeah, I'm just kind of curious to get your take on it, having seen it now from a few years out.
Yeah, I think to back up to kind of our purpose of building community through beer, it's our community starts with our coworkers, right? And we follow kind of the evergreen path. Our intent is not to build up the value of the company and sell it, right? The way we operate is for this thing to be long lasting and to turn over kind of generation to generation. And in order to do that, it really does need to be a people first company. The overarching principle is, if we take care of our people, they'll take care of the business, right? Because it can't just be a few people sitting in offices saying, now this thing's going to be successful. Like, it takes everybody. It takes 150 of us to operate Odell Brewing at the most efficient and amazing way possible. It can't just be a handful of managers casting down upon the rest, the direction. So the people first principle is really important. And I think the ESOP just helped reinforce it. We always kind of had the ESOP mentality. Before we had ownership, you didn't, people without ownership were treating it like their own brewery. When you were there, it's like we were out there talking about Odell like it was our own. We were, we acted like owners, and now people act like owners because they are. It's not just a feeling, it's a real thing. So 19% of the company is owned by the ESOP, and then coworkers are part of that ESOP after a year, and then fully vested after 5. So far it's worked out really well. And the folks that have moved on have been able to take advantage of the value they've built in the company, and the folks that are still with us are continuing to help us build value in the company. I love that we did it. We did it back in 2015, and it's so far so good. It's complicated. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to manage on the financial side. I know Chris, our CFO, would say there's a lot to it. It's complicated. He's right, but it's awesome. It's I would encourage anybody who's even thinking about it to really look into it.
That's cool.
Again,
It's cool to hear.
Unique opportunities beyond beer. It's just one of those things if we can do, as you talked about, setting up your system so your coworkers, your employees can live a good life and not be food or housing insecure, especially in a tough market like Austin, or, Fort Collins is expensive, and just about, a lot of places in the country are quite expensive now. The old brewer salary doesn't quite cut it. So being very thoughtful about how we can continue to take care of our people so they continue to take care of each other, and the business is more and more of a challenge, but it's the most rewarding thing you can do.
For sure. Yeah. I think, we refer to it as our, the Pine House ecosystem, and, it takes all the different components in it for it to thrive. And, I think one of the things that you kind of were touching on too about, people thinking they're part of that ownership, and, really having a say in the direction of the company was so true. And I think something one of the takeaways I, took from you was working there was, and I think one of the reasons why you guys have stayed so, so innovative and relevant and exciting is because you do put that innovation and put all those ideas back on the team. It's a lot of different people coming up with ideas. I think about that all the time. Like, there's so many breweries that, that it's like they still have the brewmaster that comes down with the scribed tablets and says, this is what we're brewing. And, I think those days are pretty long gone. I think we look at it as we have 4 systems, and it's a great opportunity for people to get in there and brew their own recipes. And like you said with Sip and Pretty, we've had some huge wins come out of what our brewers are coming up with. And yeah, I mean, if it was just me, I'd probably make 3 different IPAs and be happy with that. So it's I got people that are excited about lagers now and excited about wheat beers and all these different styles. So we're able to diversify.
Man, I see it. I see when I go visit you. I see you let folks do their thing. You empower them to be creative and to follow their passion and to learn their technical stuff on their own and bring it to the table and bounce those ideas off of you. Like you do it, man. You do what I try to do. I see you doing, and that's empowering people. You provide guidance and support, but you let them run. When you're talking to your folks about beers, it's amazing. It's theirs, but you're just there to support. And then it's a total team thing. If you're just telling them what to do, I mean, you mentioned Puppet Master, like Brett runs and does his own thing. Marnie runs and does her own thing. We just bounce ideas around, and every once in a while I'm like, hey, you need to use 638 as a bittering hop only, so we can provide feedback for Jason on what this thing could do. But other than that, if we're developing a new beer for the big system, we'll have more structure, but it's way more about empowerment and innovation and passion projects. And then beautiful things happen out of that,
For sure. I mean, that's how, probably all the great beers that, you and I and anybody's created has come from that pure passion,
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I remember.
And I still love it, man. I still love it. I love drinking beer. I'm not one of those, like, I don't drink cocktails. I know the rest of the world does. And cross drinking is not even a thing. People just drink. But I love beer. I love craft beer. I love what we're doing. I'm in New York right now visiting family, and I'm drinking Allagash White, and I'm drinking Bright Eye beer out of Long Beach. These guys that just started up a couple of years ago, right at the beginning of COVID, they're making great beers, right in-house. They don't distribute. There's great beer all throughout the world, but throughout our country now at a different level than there ever was. And I love it, man. I love drinking beer, and I'm just glad that I still enjoy it the way I always did, because I see folks getting burnt out, and I know it's a big topic, and it's been bounced around in some rags and stuff that comes through my inbox, and I know it's real, but I'm almost like change junkie. I love the innovation. I love the creativity. I love trying new things. And even in this environment that's changing so quickly and some of it's challenging, it's fun to come up with new systems and new programs, and how can we think smaller again? How can we think differently? How do we really focus on our home state? How do we get into a brew pub situation? How do we leverage our own premise to really build community through beer and connect with charitable organizations? I mean, the house that Beer built that we talked about, and then you ran with down there as well. It's like, these things are, like, man, they're so much fun. And it's all because we make great beer, and that's what started our whole business. But because of that, we get to do all these other great things. But I still love beer. I love it.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I do love cocktails and wine too. I'm kind of one of those people. I drink everything. But yeah, beer is first and foremost my love. I think there's just something so agriculturally transparent in good craft beer that and I think you get to really see the craftsmanship at work. I think that's one of the things that I love, about being in this industry. And I think I think I was probably there at one point. I think I was too focused on just brewing, and brewing was all I cared about, and I was kind of invested my whole life, and it kind of got away from some of the hobbies that I love, and spending time with my wife Crystal, and doing the stuff that we love, and so it's in some ways, I think for me the pandemic kind of actually recentered that and got me kind of focused on that. I think I've come back loving beer more than I ever have, which has been really fun to kind of find it again in some ways, and get excited about those beers, and traveling for beer again, which I hadn't done for a few years.
Yeah. Well, it's like, man, life's like beer, right? You need balance for it to be the best it can be. You need balance.
For sure.
You can't make a beer with all hops, and you can't make a life with all work.
Yeah. I think it's good. I think, for every brewer out there, especially ones that have, been in the industry for a short amount of time, it's making sure that they have that balance. I feel like I find that as a common thread when I'm listening to beer podcasts more and more, like reading interviews. People are talking about the stuff they love to do outside of beer just as much as what they're talking about their brewery. And so yeah, it's cool that you mentioned that.
So now the time to talk about men's league hockey, or what?
Yeah, so you're a pretty good hockey player. I got to play against you at the Craft Brewers Conference in Minnesota, which was that was a blast. I missed you this year.
I know. I was impressed with the level of talent out there.
This year was a little slower.
A little slower?
A little slower this year, but Jason was still running around all of us. So
good.
He hasn't lost a step. But yeah, so what else do you, I know, you're a big hockey guy. We did a really fun beer together called Silky Mittens.
Yep.
But yeah, what else are you up to?
Well, I love skiing and being in the mountains, being in Colorado. If you don't, there's something wrong with you, I think. But then my newest hobby, the one I kind of picked up early on in COVID, is picking up old audio equipment, old analog audio equipment, and rebuilding it. So, desoldering and resoldering things, and rebuilding speakers and old amplifiers. So I've got Katie is a wonderful human who lets me fill my basement full of 70s audio gear and slowly rebuild it till it sounds like something good.
That's cool. That's fine. There's a guy that I ride trials with who's really into rebuilding old organs. So I kind of understand that feel. It takes a certain mindset. I don't think I'd have the patience for it, but that's cool.
I didn't think I ever would either, but I'm digging it.
Yeah, that's cool. I guess, one of the things, you talk about the mountains and the beautiful landscape of Colorado. Obviously there's some challenges I think that, you guys are facing from just the natural environment. You guys have dealt with some fires that have impacted your water pretty significantly. Just water shortage as a whole on the Front Range seems to be a topic that I hear from some of my friends that are still living up there.
Yeah.
So I guess, you guys have always been very focused on sustainability, but what are those challenges, and what are the stuff that you're doing, and what's your kind of outlook on some of that as we move forward?
Sure. Yeah. Our biggest sustainability, water has always been top of the, even back when you were with us, we were doing all we can to reduce our water usage and reuse. And so we've done a nice job there, where our water usage per barrel is really low relative to the rest of the industry, which we're proud of and is a focus point for us. But our big sustainability initiative right now is actually installing a CO2 recovery system that we just bought through Pentair that'll be delivered here shortly. So we should be able to recover 100% of our CO2 needs through fermentation with this system, which is super exciting. but that's not what you asked about. Sorry. Going
No,
back
but
to
that's cool.
going back
It's
to
all
water.
sustainability, right? You know,
Yeah,
it's every little
yeah.
part
And it's a big
matters.
investment at a weird time. We even had coworkers go, what are you doing? Is this the right thing? Why are we spending $1 million on this thing? Right. It's like, well, because it's it's kind of like the solar panels we put in a long time ago. Will it ever pay off? Maybe 25 years. Yeah. But it's the right thing to do. It's absurd to us when there's technology now that's appropriate for our size to blow off CO2 in the atmosphere and then go buy a bunch of liquid CO2 to pump back in. So that's been an 3-4 year project investigation anyway, and we're really excited to get that going. And our sustainability team's kind of pretty hyped on that new machine. But on the waterfront, we lucked out. The city of Fort Collins does a phenomenal job with water treatment and water filtration. We've had a great snowpack. Actually, we had a lot of snow in the northern Front Range this past winter, so our water situation is really good. We're kind of through the runoff of the last couple of years, but again, our water, City of Fort Collins water, gives us a daily report, and they've done a phenomenal job of treatment and filtration. And then we filter in the brew house as well, and then kind of recondition our water for brewing depending on what we're doing.
Yeah, that's cool. I remember that year when we had the really bad fire in the Cooter Canyon. You guys were dealing with a lot of the, I guess the stuff you never think about, but all the ash that ended up in the Cooter River that ended up in the water supply, and that was something I know when I was at Odell. I mean, we didn't do anything to the water. It just, it's amazing water. It's some of the best brewing water. But yeah,
no, we had
flip that.
filtration with the brew house we installed in 2013. Right, that Browcon system, we added water filtration at that point, understanding that it was a good time to invest in consistency of water. But you're right, back then we didn't. We just took what we got and we boiled it every night. Remember, we'd fill up the kettle and boil it, and then that was our brewing water. So we at least drove the chlorine off.
Yeah. It was so interesting coming from, Fort Collins to Austin's water, because it's actually mineral content wise, it's pretty similar, except for we have really high temporary hardness. So it was everything I kind of knew about getting bitterness in a beer or keeping bitterness out of a beer was kind of turned upside down. So that was a challenge, but
yeah, Denver's a different situation than Fort Collins. So, think about it. Water's our number one ingredient, right?
Yeah, for sure. That was, that's one of the weird things about Colorado too. I remember Fort Collins to Boulder was a big difference in water. And so it is, it's always interesting when, as brewers, I'm still the brewer that I taste the CLT of whatever brewery and I'm in every day. It's the first thing I do is I go fill my water bottle with CLT water. And, I try to tell all my brewers, if you don't know what your water tastes like, you're never going to know what your beer is going to taste like.
That's great, man. I love it. We have CLT on our taste panel. We got HLT on our taste panel too.
Yeah, you can catch some big problems. If you might never think about. So
it's the little things, man. Right? It's all these little details matter. That's where that.
It's that definite, that saying, what's the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. I don't think I have anything else for you today, Brendan. It's been fun to talk about. I guess we could talk about the Avs and, can they rebound after the early exit this year?
How'd the Wild do? I forget.
Yeah, we had an early exit. We had a normal exit. We got out round. We don't like to go past round one.
Yeah, so they're playing golf together then.
Yeah. I went to a game up in Buffalo this past year. They're playing Edmonton. I wanted to watch McDavid play because the guy's just amazing. And there was some fans. They were chirping some Leafs fans about the Leafs. Make sure you get the golf trip booked to Mexico the first week of May like normal. So
that city's tortured, man. Toronto fan, poor guy.
Yeah, Yeah. But yeah, it's always fun. The hockey's fun. It's been a fun season, and or by the time this airs, we're gonna know who the Stanley Cup champion is.
Yeah,
So that'll
right.
be cool.
Hey man, thanks again. I really do appreciate you reaching out. I love any opportunity to connect with you. And just seeing you on the screen, I realize it's about time to come pay a visit if you're not coming up to Front Range anytime soon. So let's make
Yeah,
that
we'll
happen.
get something on the books, and we'll come hang out either down here or up there.
Yeah.
Up there is going to be more fun. It's hot here right
All right. Well, come on up.
now. All right, Brendan. Great
All
chatting
right,
with
Joe.
you.
Yeah, you too, man.
And yeah, so Brendan's going to be back on the next episode of the show as a host, having conversation with a brewer of his choosing. That'll be on the air in 2 weeks. So make sure to tune in for that. And make sure to visit allaboutbeer.com and follow on social media to support journalism in the beer space. Check out patreon.com/allaboutbeer. I'm Joe Mohrfeld, and thank you for listening to the Brewer to Brewer podcast.
First Tee is a proud sponsor of the Brewer to Brewer podcast. Some of the brightest brewers across the country have discovered the First Tee advantage. Hill Farmstead, Sweetwater Brewing Company, and Angry Chair are among the many who have used First Tea's unique and quality teas and botanicals to create top-rate beers. First Tee focuses on being direct, flexible, and fast. You can find out more about First Tea's collaboration with brewers and tea ingredients by visiting firsttee.com/blog. That's FIRSDTEA.com/blog. Looking for an easy hop sourcing experience? Yakima Valley Hops offers the finest quality hops from right here in our valley and premium growing regions around the world. Get the hops you need when you need them with ultra-fast shipping and awesome customer service. With a full line of liquid hop products and all your favorite varieties, no contracts are needed to brew with the best. Shop now at yakimavalleyhops.com. That's YAKIMA valleyhops.com.